Greetings, everyone. This is Rockwell Swat Connection with yet another retro review. This time focusing on Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. So, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight is, it's the first Tales from the Crypt movie. It was supposed to be the second in a trilogy, but Universal felt it was closest to the show. So they put this one out first, then never put out the next two, which they planned to do, but then still made another one. I'm not sure if Universal made the third one or not, but there is also a third movie, and let's just say there's a distinct depreciation in quality. So, what is Demon Knight about? The simple version is that the demon tries to become a mystical artifact from his guardian. Some quick takes: it's an incredibly fun and underrated horror movie. And Universal was right. This really does feel very much like the show. Hell, this movie honestly feels like an extended episode of the series with a much bigger budget. There are, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, two movies which truly capture the feeling of the old 50s horror comics like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Fear, so on and so forth. Excuse me. This and George Romero and Stephen King's Creepshow from the early 80s. Anywho, moving on with the review. So, cast note. We've got in the lead role, we have William Sadler, who you may recognize from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, Die Hard 2, Iron Man 3, and various other films, as Breaker. He's the current guardian of an ancient key-shaped relic with mystical properties. Older than he looks. Billy Zane as the Collector, a demon trying to take the relic the Breaker is protecting. Jada Pinkett Smith as Geraldine, an ex-convict who does odd jobs for Irene at the mission. More on Irene in a second. CCH Powder as Irene, owner and proprietor of The Mission, a decommissioned church-turned-hotel in Wormwood, New Mexico. Sharp as a tack. Not really one to mess with. Brenda Backey as Cordelia, an escort living and working from The Mission. Dick Miller as Uncle Willie, the town drunk, claims that he used to own the local mine. Gary Farmer as Deputy Bob, local sheriff's deputy. He's a bit overzealous in the execution of his duties, but yeah. Thomas Hayden Church as Roach, asshole and short order cook at local diner, frequent customer of Cordelia. Charles Fleischer as Wally, former postal worker who admires Cordelia from afar, and to be fair, does kind of spiral into the stereotypical 90s violently crazy postal worker trope that was kind of a big deal back at that point in time. And finally, John Kassir as the Crypt Keeper, who is, of course, the host of Tales from the Crypt. Alright, so the movie technically has two different stories. You've got your bookend story, featuring the Crypt Keeper, which starts off with the Crypt Keeper correcting a movie. And he's very critical of his cast members, and all the usual, all the relevant puns are worked in. For example, referring to John Larroquette as being no Gory Cooper, not even a Robert Redford. asking if he calls what he's doing hacking. And Larry Kent even gets in on the fun by asking at the end of the opening, directors, they dig this guy up. As for the movie itself, we open with a car chase that ends rather explosively between Breaker and the Collector. Before the actual crash, Breaker manages to escape from his car as the Collector rams it. After the explosion, he makes his way into town and tries to steal a car from the local diner, but he's caught in the act by a young boy named Danny, who is the son of the owners of the diner. But this causes Breaker to run rather than continue trying to break into the car. He runs into Uncle Willie. They share a drink, and then Willie takes him to the Mission, a nearby hotel run by Irene. Used to be a church up until the 50s. Meanwhile, the local sheriff's department has come upon the scene of the crash. Breaker appears, asking if they saw, or not Breaker, but the Collector appears asking the sheriff and his Deputy Bob, if it is Deputy Bob's, right? Yeah, if they've seen Breaker. Well, they haven't, but he explains that Breaker's a thief, and he's trying to track down something that Breaker stole. So he tags along with the sheriff and the deputy. And they get a call about someone trying to steal a car from the diner. They learn about that, and then get another call from about someone acting about a strange man who's arrived at the Mission. Shortly after Breaker arrives at the Mission, though, Roach arrives, explaining that someone tried to steal a car. The owner of Roach's boss, which is what prompts Irene to call the sheriff's department after Breaker has paid for a room in advance and is eating dinner, in fact. So the cops and the Collector show up. There's a brief standoff where Breaker is holding Geraldine hostage, but also during this whole before this, we also are quickly introduced to Wally, Cordelia, Geraldine, and of course Irene. So, but yeah, Breaker holds Geraldine at knife point. Right? Or may have been gun. No, it wasn't. It was. No. Takes her hostage briefly, but he gets taken down, arrested. But it turns out they've gotten word from the office that the car Breaker that the Collector was driving was also stolen, and so they're both under arrest. Collector doesn't take this well and punches through the sheriff's head. I mean, we're talking like, the sheriff's head is stuck on the Collector's forearm for the rest of the action of the sequence. But he gets out, and Breaker manages to block the door. He summons forth demons. He also delivers what is quite possibly the best line in the movie, taking off his cowboy hat and duster, like, oh, fuck this cowboy shit. It is. Here's. It, yeah. Billy Zane is hands down the best part about this movie. And I do not mean that in a detrimental manner because everyone else is also really good. He is just even. Somehow they got the best performance out of him that he's ever given. Ever. I mean, his performance as a collector is better than his performance as himself in Zoolander. So yeah, he summons forth some lower level demons, and they besiege the hotel, and he will telepathically seduce various people within. He gets to Cordelia. Who in turn then kills Wally, and also tears off Irene's arm. There's a point where they try to escape, and that's when they come upon Danny, the young boy from the diner, whose parents have also been turned, along with some of the other townsfolk. Um, then Roach betrays the whole group. After after Breaker tells everyone what's going on, that you know demons made these seven keys to creation, but then God said, "Let there be light," and the seven keys were, just basically cast of the winds. One of them, the seventh one, landed on Earth, where it ended up, and it was then filled with the blood of Christ during the crucifixion, and it's been passed down from guardian to guardian over multiple millennia. And during World War One, back in 1917, Breaker got it in France. But Roach steals the key, and when everyone else is broken off, he offers it up to the collector. Kind of, hey, I give you this, I can leave, right? And collector's like, yeah, sure. Of course, the collector betrays him, but while that's going on, Uncle Willie has also been seduced by the collector and been turned. And so, a combination of Danny, Geraldine, and Breaker are fighting him. Also, Deputy Bob and Irene are going through the belongings of some of the stored belongings up in the attic, which is when they find a stash of weapons that Wally had. And guns, but no ammunition. But he did have, I can't remember, either 6 or 8 hand grenades, and he'd set up a means to basically pull all the pins at once. And it turns out that he was not wrongfully fired from the post office. He had been stealing mail, and he still though did intend to go back and kill everyone there, or show up with presumably unloaded weapons and a bunch of grenades, and yeah. So the everyone offers are made. Further offers, one is made to Irene. The offer to her is, "Hey, I'll give you back your arm that got torn off." And there's actually this great moment where CTH Pounder with she's got a prosthetic stump for her upper arms, holds it up like this, and like, and Billy goes, "Do we have a deal?" "No, I'm giving you the finger." There was also a point during the search for Danny where the collector tries to convince Geraldine to switch sides, but she's not having it. Danny. What ends up happening is the demon Roach has gotten rid of one of the one of the barriers before he was killed, and so the demons climb on up, and Deputy Bob and Irene just tell him, "Hey, the three, Breaker, Danny, Irene, or Geraldine, you get up to the attic. We'll hold them off." And Irene uses the grenades that Wally had and blows up a good chunk of the demons. While in the attic, Breaker explains to Geraldine that, yeah, tonight, I'm going to die tonight. I know this now. I'm going to die, and you are going to take my place as guardian of the key. While this is going on, and he's talking more about the whole thing, Danny's reading an old horror comic, Tales from the Crypt, actually, and on one of the panels, suddenly the eyes open and look at him. And next thing you know, the next time we see Danny, he attacks Breaker. Seriously messes him up. But, so yeah, he's not going to, pretty much making it clear, yeah, he's not going to make it through. And so, Geraldine takes the key, but the collector comes up and it's like, okay, well, we got it, okay, so, there's got to be something we can do. He finds her covered in blood. In her underwear, covered in blood. He grabs her and realizes that she poured some of Breaker's blood into the key and then poured it all over herself. So he improvises and manages to wash the blood off of her. Though we see her quickly swallow the blood. He then offers to turn her, claiming to love her. Well, okay. He tries to say that he loves her. It's another really great scene of Billy Zane. Like, you. I don't think I've ever said that before. You. And I was hoping maybe you could find it in your heart to me. But yeah, she spits the blood onto his face. We also learned that, yeah, earlier in the movie it's explained that the demons can be killed by basically destroying their eyes. So Geraldine tries that with the collector, but that only works for low-level demons. He's a bit higher up. But collector's destroyed. She goes and refills the key with Breaker's blood. The mission is pretty much destroyed, but she later on, after getting her arm taken, the collector broke her arm in the climax, and but yeah, gets on a bus before it leaves. She pours a little bit of the blood onto the floor of the bus, to create yet another a barrier on it, which is great. As there's a new collector coming after her and he's staying at the next bus stop, and he decides he'll wait for the next bus. As for the ending of the bookend portion with Crypt Keeper, more of his usual puns. But he's getting ready for the premiere of his movie. He gets to the red carpet, and turns out the producer, he was promised final cut. Well, in this case, it means he's being put into a guillotine by the producers. And it's actually the producers of the movie. The actual producers of the actual movie. But he got final cut. And that is where the movie ends. Okay, so the ups and downs. Okay. I mentioned Billy Zane being the best part of the cast, and he is. He really is. But the cast as a whole is all really good. William Sadler as Breaker, he does it. It's done just right. You have the always amazing Dick Miller, as well as CCH Pounder, Jada Pinkett Smith, Thomas Hayden Church. This was before Thomas Hayden Church kind of. This was around the time where he was just known as Lowell from Wings, but this was just kind of when he started to inch away from that. It's shot just perfectly. The angles work great. The director. Ernest Jackson, he knew exactly what he's doing. Yeah, Ernest Dickerson. My bad. Yeah. It's actually a really great mix of scares and laughs. It's actually it is mostly scary. It is mostly as a horror movie. But it keeps it gives you enough levity between scares. You're like, okay, it hurt. But it actually kind of okay. A great example is while Breaker's eating, Cordelia sits up on the table next to him, and about the same time, Geraldine's pet cat also jumps up on the table. And Irene looks over and shouts, "Get that pussy off the table!" And Cordelia promptly jumps off as the cat's being pulled off the table too. And Irene just looks. I was talking about the cat. I mentioned there are two movies that really how there are two movies that capture the feeling of the old EC horror comics perfectly. This and Creepshow, and yeah, again, this really does capture that feel of the comics as well as the HBO TV series, which largely drew from those comics. The effects, by and large, still hold up really well. Nearly 25 years later. Keep that in mind. This, it's the beginning of next year. This movie is a quarter century old, and it still looks damn good. There are a few effects where like, oh, okay, that doesn't look so great. But everything else, yeah. On the downside, the only one I can really come up with is, so near the end you have the point when Danny's reading the comic and Breaker's got into the comic and then next time we see him he's been possessed and he attacks Breaker and the scene where everyone else, we get to see the point where the collector comes to them and say, "Hey, here's what I'm offering." With Danny, not so much. And also, this kind of leads to one of the effects shots that doesn't hold up too well because they utilize the comic book to show you, to just kind of, so you don't have a transformation sequence for Danny to Demon Danny. And like I said, there could have been a really cool animated sequence there with Danny and the Collector discussing, well, the Collector convincing Danny to switch sides, basically. And then yeah, the comic is a transition point to hey, the comic panel shows the discarded comic shows, oh yeah, here's Demon Danny. Oh, there's Demon Danny. It's like as opposed to having an effect that worked to that went in stages. But yeah, that's honestly the one problem I have. It's like the actors that one would consider weak. It's more they're weak compared to everyone else, but they still, and it's mostly just because they're not given much to do because they're not. You're both supposed to see them, get the idea of who they are, so that when they pop up back up later as demons, yeah, that's that. You're not asking, wait, who the hell is that? Okay, townsfolk, gotcha. Alright, so, final opinion. It's a fun, darkly humorous horror movie that still fires on all cylinders, 25 years later. And I cannot, it's one of those I really cannot recommend higher. Because I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's one of the best. Rating, I honestly don't have an issue saying 4.5 out of 5. I mean, like I said, that little bit near the end, it just was kind of, oh yeah, that could have been better. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy seeing how well the effects even stack up. But yeah, anyway, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, PayPal, and PayPal can you find in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spot signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.